the $300 billion that's been spoken about, I know the details haven't been fleshed out, but my concern is this, as someone who always is concerned about American corporations, even Gulf corporations. These people cannot be trusted. Whether it's America, whether it's the Gulf state, this is my personal view. And so if it's 300 billion as a form of some form of reparations, that's fine. But if it is that, for example, Iran, as per what it was explained, maybe the UAE wants to fund a nuclear plant in Iran, and so then they give Iran some money. For me, that's a point of concern because now they have ownership of that, their own assets in Iran. And so the concern is to make it more easier for people to understand is, like, we're not going to see Trump Tower in Tehran, are we? Or like, what is the $300 billion about?
No. Well, this is the Americans have imposed maximum pressure sanctions on Iran, and so they are trying their best to prevent any investment by anyone in the country. So, for example, there are Chinese investors in Iran, but they have complicated. It's complicated for them to work in the country, to take out their profits and so on. This very so far vaguely defined concept is basically to break the American maximum pressure framework, and to say that the Americans cannot block in the investment that comes into Iran. And so whatever money enters Iran, it would enter Iran like in all other countries. They'd have to get approval. They would have to go through the legal and abide by all the legal requirements. The only thing here is that this wealth that comes into Iran, the United States would not be able to sanction it. So if, for example, there is investment from abroad, let's say the Emiratis, as you say, or the Qataris, or the Chinese, or anyone else, the Americans cannot threaten them with sanctions because their investment in Iran would be within that particular framework that I pointed out. But we haven't even reached that stage because the issue of the nuclear program and Iranian sanctions and the sanctions on Iran are for stage two. And I don't even know if we're going to ever get to stage two or we're ever going to complete stage two, because as you've seen, stage one has already been very problematic and very, the two sides have been, yesterday Trump was threatening to murder the Iranian diplomats, the negotiators. He was threatening to destroy Iran again. And of course, the Iranians are not going to back down because of U.S. threats. But the point is that we have a long way to go before we get to any agreement with regards to the more substantive issues.
No doubt, no doubt. And I guess my concern is this, that you don't want to end up having like American corporate interests or even Emirati or Gulf interests, because they use that leverage against the country. And I think our hope is that Iran becomes the bastion of morality, becomes a place where, it does become economically strong, but doesn't have to sell out after all the sacrifices it's made after all these years. Now, we did have a statement from from Netanyahu today, and it's about Lebanon. And my opinion is that Iran has done a great feat in Lebanon. As someone who's been covering this for years, the fact that there's no bombing for 2-3 days and the fact that leverage is being applied in a very smart way is very impressive. But this is the statement of Netanyahu, who said the following, quote, "My directive and that of the Minister of Defense to the IDF is clear and not changed. Our soldiers in southern Lebanon have full freedom of action to thwart any direct or emerging threat to them or to the residents of the north. The IDF has no restrictions in this regard. I stand firm that we will remain in the security zone in southern Lebanon as long as is necessary to protect the residents of the north and all citizens of the country." Now, Iran has done an amazing feat. 48 hours, no bombing. We hope it continues, although with Israel, you can never ever say that. We're expecting them to try and thwart it any minute now. So 2 questions. What is being thought about in terms of a response if they were to do that, to once again attack Lebanon, point one? And the second thing is the even more difficult aspect, to get them to retreat. What would be the mechanisms or the discussions that are in place to get them to retreat? Because at the moment they're saying, within the security zone?
Well, Iran has leverage. After all, uh, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has its missiles that can strike at any moment. And Iran also has leverage at the negotiating table with the United States. If the United States wants to discuss the nuclear program, if it wants to uh, normalize the trade through the Strait of Hormuz, it has to deal with Iran. And if it wants progress, then it's going to have to produce progress. And therefore, Iran has more than enough leverage. And I wouldn't take anything that Netanyahu says seriously. If, God forbid, you or I were Netanyahu, God forbid, if we were such monsters, we would be such a monster, we would be saying the same thing. The fact is that Netanyahu's interests and the interests of his regime are right now in conflict with the interests of Trump and his regime. Trump needs a deal. He needs the energy crisis to be resolved. And Netanyahu does not want a deal. And he does not care about the energy crisis wrecking the US economy or the global economy. So Netanyahu and Trump, whether they like it or not, they have their policies are in conflict with one another. And what Iran is trying to do is to make sure that the United States prioritizes its own interests over the interests of the Zionist regime. Now, how much success will Iran have? Time will tell, but there's a lot of pressure right now. The very fact that Trump just last week admitted that there's only 4 weeks left of strategic oil reserves in the United States says a lot. And Iran knew that, and Iran is going to move forward with the knowledge that the United States is under such immense pressure. So we have to be patient. And Netanyahu is, of course, a monster. His coalition partners are all monsters. Anyone who's a Zionist is uh, is an immoral being. But we will continue to apply pressure. My hope, though, is that other countries, especially the countries that endorse Trump's ceasefire in Gaza, that they will wake up and start applying pressure on the United States and helping Iran with regards to Gaza. Because just today, there have been multiple murders in Gaza, as every day. One of them was a young girl who was going to school, and they murdered her. She was on her way to give an exam, I think. And you don't see this in the Western media because they don't care about. I mean, these Western feminists, these well-funded feminists, so where are they now? They've all disappeared for 3 years now. I mean, they're slaughtering girls every day and slaughtering children every day. More than one child, on average, more than one child a day has been murdered since the ceasefire, the so-called ceasefire. So activists in Jordan, in Turkey, in Egypt, in across the region, in Pakistan, and in all those countries whose leaders were at the summit and at the signing ceremony or the ceremony for Trump's ceasefire, they should be putting pressure on their governments to take a stand and to force Trump to at least implement his ceasefire, because there is no ceasefire in Gaza. So the Iranians will continue to put pressure on the Israeli regime in Lebanon. They'll try to put pressure as much as possible on Gaza. But I think those countries that were complicit in this fake ceasefire, they have a responsibility to do something about it.
No doubt. And how monumental is it that what you mentioned at the start of the show, that you're going to attempt to include Gaza into the deal? There's going to be negotiations. For me, this is just too shocking. I didn't expect it. And the reason I didn't expect it is because, as you mentioned, this fake ceasefire with these Gulf Arabs and these other Muslim nations. And also on top of that, it seemed like the resistance also wanted to uphold that ceasefire because they didn't open another front, which makes sense because they wanted to abide by the ceasefire. I'm talking about the resistance in Palestine during this war. And so I always thought it was too difficult for Iran to kind of say, look, we're gonna, we're gonna just come in and take over, in the sense of we're gonna supersede that deal and we're gonna supersede everything that's happening. So I just saw it as an impossible task. So the fact that Iran's trying it is shocking to me. I mean, that's quite impressive, right?
Oh, absolutely. And one other thing that I should remind your audience, I'm sure you know this, but Hezbollah entered the fight on the 8th of October after it was clear that the Israeli regime was going to assault Gaza and they had genocidal intentions. They said that there are no innocents. We recall what they were saying about what they're going to do to the Gazans, and they did it. And so Hezbollah entered the battle in the north of Palestine in order to draw away Israeli forces from Gaza to help Gaza to help save Gaza. And if Hezbollah had not made those sacrifices, they would have overrun Gaza. So the regime had to put, well, I don't know exactly how much, roughly half of its troops in the north to deal with Hezbollah, and thus the genocidal invasion of Gaza was hampered. So if it wasn't for Hezbollah, Gaza would have been overrun. And now Hezbollah and its supporters across Lebanon, for almost 3 years now, they've been paying a price. And they knew that this would happen. But they did it because they felt responsible for the people of Palestine. So it's for that reason that we all have a responsibility to, when we see that Hezbollah has and its supporters have made such sacrifices, we have to be more vocal in our support of the Palestinian people. We have to be on the streets. We have to be protesting, not breaking the law in any of these Western countries, but giving an excuse to the Zionists to destroy the lives of people, but to create greater awareness. And in our region, our people have even greater responsibility because the countries in the region they're all complicit, and so we all have to be more active. And we have a responsibility to those children in Gaza who are being slaughtered every day. I read a report, and I think Chaz Freeman first told me this a couple of days ago, and I looked it up, and it was true. Apparently, it's quite possible that up to almost 700,000 people in Gaza have died, and they make this assessment based upon the amount of aid that goes into Gaza now. The population is significantly lower than what it was before this Holocaust. So we have a responsibility to save the rest of these women and children and men who are besieged and who are being starved and who are being abused and who are living under horrific conditions. We have a responsibility, and we cannot escape. Our silence is complicity.
No doubt. And the report you're talking about, it was reported by Lancer as well in terms of the figure of 700,000. So I totally agree with you.
I think that yeah, that Lancet report was a report that came out a while back, but another report came out more recently. Apparently, that's
Oh,
what
interesting.
when I looked it up, I saw the Lancet report, but I think that Ambassador Chaz Freeman was alluding to something newer, but the report that I saw was the one that you were saying
No doubt.
that
Now,
you referred to.
yeah, no doubt. I totally agree with you. And Gaza's always